All right, so steal might be too strong of a word in this situation, but in this video, I'm going to show you how I look for color inspiration and then use it to inform and build my own palettes. To start, I tend to look outside of the current design bubble. I'll spend time Googling photography, nature, food, textiles, vintage graphic design, basically anything that isn't in the contemporary design sphere on the internet. And this is all in hopes of finding something special and unique that I like. Pinterest is a great place for sourcing color inspiration, but you have to curate what you're looking at. It is way too easy to end up down a rabbit hole of looking at the same design images. This is called a book. Now, books come from trees, and they're kind of like the internet, except you will enjoy reading them. Also, they smell nice. So I love digging through old books and magazines to hunt for really interesting color schemes. But if you don't have a library at your disposal, you can also search for this stuff online and find some great references to help inspire you. Now, if you're more of an outdoor person, then you literally have the whole world to explore. There is so much fun color reference out in the real world. And to help you do that, there is a lovely little app I like to use called Adobe Capture. It's a free download, and all you really need is a smartphone and a Creative Cloud account, even the free one. This little thing, this is my lunch bag, believe it or not. I bring this in every day to well, carry my lunch and keep it nice and cold. But I thought this would be a good candidate for us to sample some colors from because it's very colorful and it was right next to me when I thought of it. So let's use the app and start sampling this. First thing you're gonna wanna do when you open the app is you will see a big menu at the top with a variety of options. I want you to swipe all the way over to where it says colors. Adobe Capture has a lot of really interesting and cool things to do inside of it, but for right now, just focus on the color bit. So swipe over to color, and then if you tap the little camera icon, you'll get this cool color sampler thing going on. But basically what you do is just point it at something you want to sample the colors from, and the little kind of dots will move around and then stick to the color, and you'll take a photo. And not only will you get the photo, but it'll automatically generate a color palette at the top for you. So let's try it on our bag here real quick. So I'm just gonna set this up this way, come back a little bit, and then give it a second, locking it in, boom, and there we go. So that's Adobe Capture. Pretty easy to use, but handy if you're out about in the world walking around and you see like a cool textile or a rug or like some curtains or really anything, like maybe a cool sign or something, you just boom, 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 and then you have that palette. And what's even better and even more convenient is that when you hit save, it saves it to your Creative Cloud account. So then later when you go home and you open up Photoshop or Illustrator, you have that color palette that you sampled, and then you can drag it in and start using it right away. So pretty cool stuff, I think. Alternatively, you could also just take photos of stuff and then bring that into Photoshop and sample the colors. But my point is, you need a way to document what you find out there in the real world. Now, you might be saying to yourself, screw this, Greg, I'm just gonna go to one of those color palette generator sites and use that. And to that I say, go for it, because those sites are awesome. They are a great place to start. And I consider them to be just that, a starting point. Now, some of them might work out of the box for what you need, but I promise you will want to know how to adjust them to taste. All right, so here's something I found that I think would work for this project. It has the whole outdoor wilderness nature thing that we're going for. And also just look at it, it's beautiful. All right, let's get some color samples going. Now, I already have a document created here, but one thing I wanted to point out is when you're setting up your new document to sample colors, whether you're using Illustrator, Photoshop, whatever, just make sure that the color mode is set to RGB. Let's keep it easy for now and just kind of focus on screens and also maximize the amount of colors we can use. That's the only thing just to look out for. Now, I have our fun little image here, a Park Ranger stove and lantern fuel can from a long time ago. Looks kind of mid-century modern. Thematically, it works with what I'm thinking, and I like the color palette, and it's kind of interesting. So basically what we're gonna do is create a set of little swatches for ourselves that are pulled from this image here. Okay, I'm in Illustrator. I just made a square. You can see that it has a white fill and a black outline. I don't like that. I want it the other way around. So I'm gonna hold Shift, push X, boom. That little shortcut flips the color and the stroke outline. And then to get rid of the stroke, you can hit this little thing here, or you can just hit the /, and there you go, done. Those are my Illustrator hot tips. There you go. And what I'm gonna do is just drag out a handful of these so we have some places to save our swatches. All right. And generally I like to start by picking an overwhelmingly large amount of colors to sample, and then kind of whittling it down and refining from there. So hopefully this is enough to hold our colors that we're going to sample. And basically we're just going to use the eyedropper tool in Illustrator. You push I and then boom, there you go. And we're just going to start grabbing colors and trying to kind of deconstruct the color palette from this image. So here we go. I'm just going to start grabbing things, and I'm not going to be too, I don't know, precious or careful about, what it is, where it's coming from. I'm just grabbing stuff, like no big deal. I just want to see what's in here. And then, decide what of it do we want to keep? What do we want to kind of merge? Because I get the feeling we're going to find a lot of, similar colors, and we can just kind of scooch them together. So at first you'll kind of be like, oh, well, I think I ran out of colors to sample from. And that's not true. It just means you have to zoom in a little further. Like, look at this little brown in his hat. I didn't even see that from out there. Okay, let's see. Let's sample this. Oh, let's sample this tan up here. I didn't see this. And maybe what else? We'll sample his nose. Well, that's weird. I just noticed this. He's holding the same fuel canister as is printed on the fuel canister. That's crazy. How funny. Okay. See, you zoom in, you see things you never would have seen before. Okay, so some of these colors might actually be the same. I'm just clicking around and grabbing and sampling just in case. So we'll grab all the stuff, and then we'll kind of merge things later and figure out what we want to use. So I will just grab a few more, click around up in here. This is like a light gray, blue or something. Let's see, what about this kid's shoe? Grab that. And oh, there's this little red thing on the ground. Yeah, it's like an orange. Sure, I'll take that. What else? Let's get his nose. I don't know, it just looks black. That's fine. And are these fish? I don't know. Let's see what the fish are. Oh, like a peach. Okay, I think that's a good enough place to start. So here, we'll get rid of these last two. Right, so we've done sort of step one, which is bringing an image in, sampling all the colors from it. That's too many colors to work with. I think from here, what I would do is start organizing these by their hue, and then probably merging and deleting some. So let's just do that. So I'm going to, let's move greens down here. Okay, these are all within the green family here. I'm gonna move these kind of like neutral, tannish skin tones up here. I'm gonna start moving around reds. And then the darker neutrals up here. You don't have to organize them this way. I'm just like to be organized. So this is my little routine that I go through. It also kind of helps, look at, okay, how many how many hues do you really have to work with? And do you need to sample more? Like we have a ton, like this is more than enough, but sometimes you'll go through an image and you might feel like, oh man, well, I really don't have that many colors to work with. Maybe you got to dig in there and really zoom in and find some more. Sometimes you have to click around like in this red and find, you can find some variations. You do you. Okay, so I'm going to say this is that looks like a neutral to me. Okay. So it ain't perfect, but this will do. Now I think we can definitely simplify this a little bit. So these yellows are close enough. I'm gonna get rid of this one. And these two end greens are pretty close, so I'm just gonna drop this. I know they're not exactly the same, but these are pretty close in brightness and value, so let's get rid of you. These two look very similar, so let's get rid of this one. And I feel like maybe we can even get rid of this one too. Yeah, why not? I'm okay with that. These two reds look the same, so I'll get rid of you. And these are pretty close as well, so I'm gonna get rid of this one. Same goes for these two. I know this is a little duller, so I'm gonna keep the brighter one because I like it. And that's my decision. And up here, this looks like almost pure black. So I'm going to get rid of that and keep this more charcoaly looking guy. Let's see. What else do we need to do? Are we good here? Do we feel good about this? I guess technically these would be red, right? So I'll put them up here. Sure. Why not? Yeah. Yeah, I buy that. Okay. So now we took this huge array of color that we initially sampled, whittled it down a little bit, organized it so it's a bit easier to look at and structure and see what we have working with, and went through and sort of just pruned the ones that felt a little too close in their value and hue perhaps. So now, if we're looking at this, it seems like we have two different neutrals to work with, right? So this kind of like creamy white and like charcoal gray. We have a red, we have a really dark blue, we have like an orangey yellow, a nice green, and then we have a more like mustard yellow. That's a good palette. There's plenty of color to work with here. Yeah, so I think that's a good first step for looking at reference that you like, that thematically makes sense, and dissecting and deconstructing the colors, and now you have sort of this like base concept to work from. Now from here, I think what we would do is we would start to refine this a little more, do some color interaction tests to figure out like how do these colors work together, is there enough contrast, and then start to really kind of make the palette our own. But great first step. So here we go. So I went ahead and brought in a few more images from our reference and sampled those colors and whittled them down to what I think the bare essentials were. And I just wanted to show you, you don't have to do this many images, but the difference between, just doing two different things. So initially, we had, here, let's zoom in here, this kind of fuel canister, and we got this really vibrant kind of color palette pulled from it. But if we move over to this photograph of Yosemite, I believe it is, we get a much different palette, and it's just as vibrant and colorful, but feels very different. And if we move around and we look at some of these other ones, like this is a bit softer. We're getting some of the pink and maroon from the beanie, and like we get this cool like kind of fashion color scheme going on. And then this other photo from what I believe is like a fine art piece, it's very, very muted. But that's really cool, and that might be something that maybe we want to head more toward. This is where the concept of, subjectivity comes into play, because all of these images thematically tie into what I want and the kind of like feeling I want to evoke. You know, they're all kind of push a little different direction. Like the top left, well, it's from an illustrated fuel can from the 50s. So it has a bit of like quirkiness to it. The top right is a very realistic but hypersaturated photograph. The bottom left is a kind of synthetic, very muted palette. And the bottom right is just a little more natural and even kind of pastel-y. So, you know, I'm looking right in the middle and I'm like, okay, any of these could work, but which direction do I feel the best about? What do I feel strongest toward? And that's a decision that I think is really up to you as a designer or creative person, is to give yourself some guidelines to work within, but then also be able to make an informed and kind of like a personal decision about what you think would work best. Okay, so after some very careful deliberation, I've decided to base our color palette off of this set right here. And the reason, other than I just kind of like this one the most, is, you know, I think there's a nice variety of color and tone. And I don't know, I think we'll have a lot of options to work with for all the different kind of needs for our artwork. So we've got a decent little color palette going here, but we need to test it and refine it a bit to see if it'll really work for what we need. However, before we get into that, it is time again for homework. Your homework for this section is to find color reference that aligns with your concept. You can use the internet machine, find a cool book, or even go outside and experience some real life. Regardless of what you decide, I want you to find something you like and start sampling color. And don't overthink it, just document and sample.